Everyone, and welcome back to A Peaceful Pursuit. My name is Michaela. Today I'm going to be giving you my top tips for working homemakers. Okay, hi. So I am just sitting down to edit this video. Sorry, my hair is just crazy. And my camera was not in focus. You guys, this has been so frustrating. And this is one of those things that I have not had time to research and figure out. So I have a long weekend for Thanksgiving and I'm gonna write it on my list to figure it out because I need my camera to autofocus because I check it 6 times before I film and then sometimes it's not even in focus and it's so frustrating. But I cannot refilm this video. I do not have time and I still want to get this out there. I am happy with everything that was said and I just want it to be helpful for you guys. So this is another one that I'm just going to say right now. You can put this on, listen to it. It's just me talking anyway, so there really isn't anything to watch, but it is a little bit blurry, so I just want to say that. So I was inspired to do this video because for the past, well, ever since I started learning about homemaking and actually what that entailed, I have been a full-time working outside of the home homemaker and trying to figure out what that means. And I am due with my first baby the end of December, so, and then I'm going to be working from home with a much more flexible position. So I'm going to be transitioning into more full-time homemaking, but I have been a full-time employee outside of the home since I was literally 15. So it's been a long time and I have a couple years of, well, I knew I wanted to be at home about 5 years ago. So I would say within the past 3 years, I really knew that I wanted to. So I've had, those 3 years to really think about this and work at it. And I am by no means perfect. There have been many frustrating moments because it is hard. It's very hard to take care of a home and have a full-time job outside of the home. So I'm gonna give you my best tips and I hope this video is helpful. So my number one tip is to get your priorities straight. And what I do not mean by that is that you can't keep your job outside of the home. I really want to make that clear because there are a lot of Christian channels. I mean, most of the women that I watch in the homemaking community are really good about being like they don't think that women can't work or anything. So I don't want that message to come across because that is not true. What I do mean though is if you are desiring to cultivate more of a loving, cozy, just cultivate the home more than probably the average American does. I'm speaking from American perspective, obviously. If you desire that more, then one thing to really sit down and think about is just your long-term priorities and goals. So for me, I knew that I have to bring in an income, and we ended up getting pregnant, so that kind of shifted things for me. Okay, now I really want to be home. If I still was not pregnant at this point, the end of this year, if we had been trying this whole year or whatever, I would probably sit down and redo this because at the time when we were trying, I was working full-time and I was that was that. But if I was still trying at this point and didn't have a baby coming, I would still be evaluating do I want to do something from home maybe so that I can be home more even without kids. You just have to sit down, write down the pros and cons of your situation. And long term, are you wanting to pursue a career still? Are you wanting to do part-time? Are you wanting to start building something that will allow you to be home? You have to sit down and think ahead. And that is something that I wish I would have done sooner because I probably could have been home sooner. But I mean, I'm thankful that I will get to be home with my baby. But I think sitting down and just figuring out what your priorities are, this will help you see you always want to work. Like I said, part-time. Do you want to work from home? You actually have to work. Some people's husbands, some women's husbands, actually do make enough and the numbers work. For us, I do have to bring in a little bit of income, and so that's just our situation. But that isn't the case for everyone, especially given, the lifestyles of the average American. There are many things that we don't really need that we're spending on just certain things like that. So that's a whole other topic, but really just sit down and get your personal priorities and your goals straightened out, because if you don't do that, then it's just kind of vague and you're just kind of like, okay, I'm working, but I'm a homemaker. And you can be and do both. Like a homemaker is not someone who's just, you know, a housewife, like doesn't have a job outside the home. Homemakers are a variety of different people, but you just have to figure out what is going to best suit the lifestyle that you and your husband want and see for yourselves and for your family. So my second tip, which this could be interchangeable with the first one or the second one, I feel like these are both very important, is to seek God on the matter and really ask him, you know, what he wants for your family. Ask him to shape your desires. This is something that I did, well, and I continue to do, because as I was weeding through, you know, cultural lies and things that I believed, and just the career driven culture that we live in, I would ask God, like, if you don't want me to be home and you want me to have a career, of course in scripture we see that the home is important, so I always knew that it was never that I would neglect my home, but I was just like, if there's something that you want me to do outside of the home, like, would you please give me a desire for that? Would you please, you know, change my desires? And what ended up happening is my desire to be home just got like immensely stronger. So I know that this is where he has me and this is the path that I am to walk on. But yeah, ask him for what he wants for you and your family, because that is first and foremost the most important thing, is that you and God are on the same page. And also with this, ask, are there areas of sin that need to be dealt with? This is something that as I get into homemaking more, since I won't be out of the home like I have been for the past many years, there's going to be areas of me that are going to be exposed that haven't been exposed before, because, you know, I'm working and I'm busy and whatever, and not that things aren't exposed when you're doing that, but there's just going to be new things that I'm going to find, you know, that I struggle with, or that areas of sin that I need to work on in my marriage, within my home, between me and my child. Like, there's just, you know, heart attitudes, heart postures, things like that are going to come up. So I would include that in that, just for any time really, but that's just part of seeking him and his desires for you. Okay, now we're going to get into a little more of the practical stuff. So my third and fourth tips are to simplify, but I will elaborate on each point. So number 3, I would say maximum 1 chore during the week. If you're working full-time. If you're working part-time, you can probably do more, but I have always been working full-time, and actually since I've been pregnant I've been working more than full-time, which is so ironic because I don't know, it's funny to me, but it's been helpful. Like, the little bit of extra money has been a nice boost, you know, as we head into this adjustment and this period of me then not bringing in as much, which we wouldn't anyway, because if I put him in daycare we would be making less anyway. So it's going to be an adjustment, but I would say during the week, maximum 1 chore beyond the basics. So for me, the basics would be, you know, the dishes are done, the dishwasher's loaded, it's unloaded the next morning, then whatever we've used that needs to go in to be washed gets put away. You know, dinner's cleaned up, and then just like basic cleaning up around the house, like laundry's put away, that kind of thing, just so that you don't have a cluttered mess. Those are like my basics that I do pretty much every day with working. So beyond that, for me, I would only do 1 chore. So I may clean 1 bathroom, or I may just vacuum, or change the sheets. I usually do that on Saturdays, but just one thing. You can decide what that is for you. You can also decide what your basics are. So if you have, you know, let's say you work like 35 hours instead of 40 hours a week or whatever, you have a few extra hours, you could maybe get a few more basics done, like maybe laundry is a basic to you. I don't know, that's up to you, but you just have to decide what your basics are that you do every day to keep the house flowing and not to like snowball into a disastrous mess. And then 1 chore beyond that, and you can assign it on the day and, you know, do it that way. I always do a little bit more on Saturdays because I have the whole day, of course, but during the week it's one thing and that's it. Otherwise you're working from literally the time you get up until you go to bed, and you definitely need some wind down time, you know, time with your husband, all of that good stuff. And as for that too, it's totally okay, like you don't have to have 1 chore per day. Like, it's totally okay to have a day where you don't have a chore at all and it's just the basics. Because for me, I found that Monday and Tuesday I was usually okay. Tuesday night I would start to get a little antsy and a little stressed because I'm like in the middle of the week. I'm starting to get tired and I don't really feel like keeping up with the basics. Even just that, like I just want to veg out for a little bit, but those things still have to be done. So I start to feel the tension a little bit. Wednesday and Thursday I really feel it. So those would be my 2 days where I probably would not schedule an extra chore, because I just need that time, you know, beyond having dinner prepared and cleaned up, my basics, like I've said, I just need the time to recoup and make sure that I can get through the rest of the week on enough sleep and just rest and just have the energy to get through. So you don't have to do one chore every single day. I would schedule them on the days that you know you have more energy, and then keep your other days lighter. So my fourth tip again is to simplify, but this has to do with meals. So when you are working full-time, especially if you work like 8 to 5, my schedule has always been a little earlier, so I would work 7 to 3. I'm not working that right now. So I had part of my afternoon, but if you're working 8 to 5, you know, you're getting home and it's probably time to start preparing dinner right away. So even if you are working an earlier shift, like I was, like a 7 to 3 or a 6 to 2 or whatever, I still think it's important to keep your meals during the week really simple, because unless you're a master chef and you can whip something super fancy up really fast, it just adds to the exhaustion of the day when you've put in 8-9 hours of work and then you're like, I still have to cook dinner. And I really enjoy cooking. I've really gotten into it and just found it a joy, but it is still exhausting when you've worked all day. So keep the meals really simple. I like to do crock pot meals. I do a lot of like one pot meals on the stove. Those are really nice. You can do sheet pan dinners during the week. All of that is just a lot more simple. I will occasionally do a more involved meal, but if I'm going to do that, it's not on one of my stressor nights. So it's going to be on a Monday or a Friday, maybe a Tuesday, but I always have a night of Bible study or a Bible class or something too, and on those nights I plan for leftovers, so I would make more the previous night so that you don't have to cook that night too, because that's just really stressful. Unless you're doing something like a frozen pizza or really easy, you know, that's fine. But otherwise, just really simplify your meals. You can do more extravagant things on the weekend, which if you have leftovers, that can carry you into the week for lunches and stuff too. And then my last little part of this one would be to schedule in nights for leftovers and or takeout. So my husband and I used to eat, usually Friday nights we would go out to eat, and then I was really sick in pregnancy, so that kind of stopped. And then later on in the pregnancy, I got diagnosed with gestational diabetes, so we're not really eating out much at all right now. We do periodically. That was always nice when I was working full-time, which I still am. I don't know why I'm saying that. I've just had to simplify a lot because now we're not eating out. But while working full-time, you know, it's just something to look forward to Friday night. I don't have to cook, you know, the week is wrapping up, we get to have a date night. I really enjoyed that. And then I would always plan for leftovers on my Bible study night. So 2 nights of the week that I'm not planning on cooking at all, and that just helps to give you a break, make sure that you can still get to bed on time, you know, the kitchen doesn't become a mess to clean up. So I would definitely recommend doing that. Okay, my 5th tip, this seems really simple, I think, but I think it's something that we as women really struggle with, and that is to ask your husband for help. I don't know what it is with us, but I just noticed this recurring pattern in the women in my family, in myself, in my friends, like in everyone. Women notice things around the house more. And I think there are some men that are very like clean freak, you know, type of people. Like, I'm not trying to stereotype anybody. I just personally have seen this pattern over and over again where women tend to notice things more and tend to, you know, put care into that more, which is really hard to do when you're working full-time. This is why you end up with this tension in a lot of marriages over, you know, household chores and all that stuff, because you've got one person who doesn't see stuff, you've got another person who cares about it a lot, you're both working full-time. Problem. There's a problem. I mean, I am by no means, I have definitely fallen into that trap where I'm building up resentment and bitterness in my head towards my husband, when it's just like, if I just asked him to do this thing, like he always says yes and he's always wonderful about it. So, you know, he can't read my mind. But I also understand when you are constantly asking someone to do things, you're still carrying the mental load. So I get that. So I think we actually haven't even been the best at this, and now that I'm going to be home, it doesn't really matter for us. But my husband does all the outside stuff, so I pretty much take care of the inside, and then I just ask him if I need extra help on something. So if I'm having a really crazy week, I'll be like, hey, this and this needs to be done. And yes, I'm still like responsible for that mental load, but I don't do anything outside. Like I don't mow the lawn. I don't, well, especially being pregnant, I don't shovel. I normally would help him shovel and stuff, but being pregnant, I haven't. And he obviously would not expect me to. But not pregnant, I would help with that, because sometimes that's just, especially if it snows a lot and stuff, like that gets to be a lot. But other than that, I really don't do anything outside. He does literally everything. And so he will, you know, help me clean up a bit after dinner and whatever. Beyond that, I do communicate to him what needs to be done. Now that I'm going to be home, I'm not really going to do that unless I'm sick or something, you know, and I need more help just to keep up with the house a little bit. What I would recommend, and what I would do personally if I was going to be going back to a full-time job outside the home after baby, is I would write down what needs to be done every week and literally divide it up. And you know, you're still the homemaker if you're having to do that, because homemaking isn't just chores and housework. That's part of it, but it's also you creating that loving and just safe, warm, cozy environment. So you can still do that while working, but you can't do it all. You can't take care of a whole house and work full-time. That's just impossible. So if you are both working, and that is, you know, what you and your husband have decided together with the Lord, my opinion is that you also both live here and you both also need to be contributing to the house if you're both contributing financially. So I would write everything out, divide it up. If you're not working full-time and it's part-time, then you probably will have a little bit more of the housework on your plate. If you're both working full-time, it should be, I mean, relatively even. Nobody should be like keeping tabs or anything. We don't want to do that. But just write it all down, divide it up, and then, you know, he knows what he needs to do, you know what you need to do. You don't have to carry the mental load of everything. That's what I would do personally if I was going to be in that situation. And I would highly recommend it, because you just can't do it all. And there's so many women that feel that burden, and I just don't think that it's necessary. Okay, my sixth and final tip, which this one is ironic because I'm horrible at this, but take a day of rest, or a morning or an afternoon. I will say I do take like a morning or afternoon. Like I'm okay at that. I'm not good at doing a day of rest, because you've heard me talk about this on my channel recently, that I've been very convicted to learn to be disciplined to rest. Part of that is hard when you're preparing for a baby, you're working more than full time, you know, things just have to get done. And I think that there are seasons like that, you know, and God, he knows that. Man wasn't made for the Sabbath was made for man. So, you know, it's there as something that we are supposed to rest in, and this is something that I want to get better at. But if you are in a season like I have been, where things just have to get done, there are times like that, at least try to take like a morning or an afternoon where you are just totally, you know, resting, enjoying life, spending time with your husband, with your family, taking a nap. I don't know. It doesn't have to be that you completely just numb out. That isn't necessarily what I'm saying, although you may need that sometimes. Just stop doing and just be and live and rest. I think that is so important, especially for somebody who is really being intentional in their home and still working a job outside the home, because it is a lot, and you really do need to take care of yourself in order to do your job well outside of the home and to do your job well inside the home. It's just so important, and I'm very convicted of that. So I'm talking to myself too. I'm not just like saying this, you know, as if I believe it and then not gonna act it out. Like, I'm actually walking in this right now, and it's definitely hard, but it's very important. Okay, so that brings us to the end of this video. I hope it was helpful for you. Let me know down below if you are a full-time homemaker, if you are a working full-time homemaker, or full-time working homemaker, however you want to phrase that. If you have a part-time job outside the home, if you work from home, let me know down below what you are, and just if you have any extra tips that I did not mention, leave them down there, because I know that many women would love to read them, and there's so many people that, you know, they want to be home, and I just don't want anyone to feel like they can't still be a homemaker, because you absolutely can. It's my personal dream to be one full-time. I'm going to be working from home, and I'm really excited about that because it's very flexible. Long term, you know, the more children that we prayerfully are blessed with, I want to be able to be so present here, and so that's part of my #1 tip, getting your own priorities, you know, set straight. That's part of my long-term goal. I hope that this was helpful, and make sure you give it a thumbs up if you liked it, and subscribe if you are new. We'd absolutely love to have you here on A Peaceful Pursuit, and I hope you guys have a great week, and I will see you on Friday.